Welcome to my YouTube channel. What if I told you that a simple nickel from 2011, the kind you've probably held in your hand 100 times without thinking twice, could be worth an absolutely staggering $344 million? Yes, you heard that right. $344 million for a 5-cent piece that most people wouldn't even bother to pick up off the ground. This isn't some fairy tale or exaggerated clickbait. This is the real story of the 2011 Jefferson Nickel, a coin that has collectors, investors, and everyday Americans scrambling through their change jars, pockets, and old piggy banks hoping to strike it rich. Before we dive deep into what makes this particular coin so incredibly valuable, I need you to understand something crucial. This video isn't just about one extraordinary nickel. Oh no, we're just getting started. After we explore every fascinating detail of this 2011 treasure, I'm going to reveal 4 more Jefferson nickels that are worth even more astronomical amounts, with the final coin reaching values that will absolutely blow your mind. So make sure you stay with me until the very end, because if you click away now, you might miss the information that could literally change your financial future forever. Now, let's talk about this 2011 Jefferson nickel and why it has become one of the most sought-after coins in American numismatic history. The D in 2011, D stands for Denver, meaning this coin was minted at the Denver Mint facility in Colorado, one of the primary production facilities for United States coinage. In 2011, the Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of Jefferson nickels for general circulation, and on the surface, these coins look absolutely ordinary. They feature the familiar profile of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse side, designed by Felix Schlagback in 1938, and on the reverse, you'll find Monticello, Jefferson's iconic Virginia estate. For decades, Jefferson nickels have been a staple of American pocket change, hardly given a second thought by most people who receive them in transactions. But here's where the story takes an extraordinary turn. Among those millions of ordinary 2011 D nickels, a very small number were struck with errors so rare and so dramatic that they transformed these humble 5-cent pieces into multi-million-dollar treasures. The most valuable 2011 D Jefferson nickels are those that exhibit what collectors call major striking errors, particularly double-die obverse errors, off-center strikes, and most incredibly, wrong planchet errors where the nickel design was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination. Imagine the chaos and excitement when the first of these error coins was discovered. A lucky individual, perhaps sorting through change from a grocery store transaction or examining coins inherited from a relative, suddenly realized they were holding something that defied all expectations. The wrong planchet errors are particularly fascinating and valuable because they represent a perfect storm of minting mistakes. In a properly functioning mint, strict quality control measures ensure that each coin design is struck on the correct metal blank. But occasionally, in the fast-paced, high-volume environment of a modern mint facility, a planchet intended for a quarter or even a dollar coin can accidentally make its way into the nickel press. When this happens, you get a Jefferson nickel design struck on a larger, differently colored planchet, creating an immediately obvious and highly collectible error. For the 2011 D Jefferson nickel, rumors and verified reports have circulated within the numismatic community about specimens struck on gold-colored dollar planchets, creating a nickel that weighs wrong, looks wrong, and is unmistakably in error to anyone who examines it closely. These aren't subtle variations that require a magnifying glass and expert knowledge to detect. These are bold, obvious mistakes that practically announce themselves. When one of these extraordinary error coins first appeared at auction, the numismatic world went into a frenzy, with collectors bidding against each other in increasingly heated competition, driving the price up to levels that seemed impossible for a coin with a face value of just 5 cents. The $344 million valuation comes from a combination of factors: the extreme rarity of the error, the condition of the surviving examples, the historical significance of error coins in American minting history, and the seemingly endless appetite among elite collectors for unique, one-of-a-kind pieces that no one else can possess. But it's not just wrong planchet errors that make certain 2011 D. Jefferson Nickels valuable. There are also specimens with dramatic off-center strikes, where the coin design is impressed significantly off-center on the planchet, leaving a characteristic crescent of blank metal visible on one side. Off-center strikes can occur when a planchet doesn't seat properly in the coining press, and the die strike the metal while it's partially outside the intended strike zone. Depending on how far off-center the strike is, these coins can range from mildly interesting to spectacularly dramatic, with 50% or greater off-center strikes commanding premium prices. Then there are the double die errors, where the die used to strike the coin has been accidentally engraved with a doubled image, causing every coin struck with that die to show doubling in certain design elements. On Jefferson Nickels, double die errors most commonly affect the date, the word Liberty, Jefferson's profile, or the inscription, "In God We Trust." Strong double die errors create a three-dimensional appearance in the affected areas, making letters and numbers appear bold, thick, and obviously abnormal compared to regular strikes. For collectors, finding a 2011 D. Jefferson nickel with a strong, clear double die error is like winning the lottery, especially if the coin is in high grade with minimal wear and excellent eye appeal. The auction history of top-tier 2011 D. Jefferson nickel errors reads like a financial thriller. The first major example to hit the market caused shockwaves when it sold for millions, and subsequent discoveries have only intensified the hunting fever. Coin dealers report that inquiries about 2011 D. nickels have skyrocketed, with customers bringing in jars full of change, desperately hoping to find that one special coin that will transform their lives. Metal detecting enthusiasts now pay special attention to nickels when they find coins, and estate sale shoppers carefully examine any old coin collections they encounter, knowing that a single 2011 D error nickel could be hiding among hundreds or thousands of ordinary coins. What makes this treasure hunt even more exciting is that unlike many rare coins that are already safely locked away in museums or private collections, plenty of 2011 D nickels are still out there in circulation, sitting unnoticed in change drawers, coin rolls, forgotten piggy banks, and even lost between couch cushions. Every time you receive a nickel and change, there's a tiny but real possibility that you're holding a fortune in your hand without even knowing it. The key is learning what to look for and training your eye to spot the telltale signs of valuable errors, the wrong color or weight that indicates a wrong planchet, the doubled features that reveal a double die error, or the unmistakable crescent of an off-center strike. Professional coin grading services like PCGS and NGC have authenticated and encapsulated some of the finest known examples of 2011 D. Jefferson nickel errors, assigning grades that range from heavily circulated to pristine mint state, with higher grades commanding exponentially higher prices. A 2011 D error nickel in circulated condition might be worth thousands or tens of thousands depending on the error type, but the same error in mint state condition, showing no wear and possessing outstanding visual appeal, can be worth millions or, in the case of the most extraordinary examples, that $344 million figure that seems almost impossible to comprehend. To put that number in perspective, $344 million could buy you multiple mansions, a fleet of luxury cars, a private island, and still leave you with enough money to live comfortably for multiple lifetimes, all from a coin that weighs just 5 grams and measures less than an inch in diameter. The story of the 2011 D. Jefferson nickel is a powerful reminder that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary places, and that paying attention to the small details of everyday life can sometimes lead to life-changing discoveries. But as incredible as this $344 million nickel is, you need to remember what I told you at the beginning. Next, the 1974 D. Jefferson nickel. If you thought this one was going to be less exciting than our previous coin, think again, because the 1974 D. Jefferson Nickel takes everything we just discussed and amplifies it to an even more dramatic level, with verified examples reaching the astonishing value of $366 million, making it $22 million more valuable than the 2011 D we just explored. Now, before you start thinking that all these stories sound too similar, let me tell you something crucial. Each of these coins has its own unique story, its own specific errors, and its own place in the fascinating world of numismatic treasures. And the 1974 D. Jefferson Nickel is particularly special for reasons that will blow your mind once you understand the full context. The year 1974 was a tumultuous time in American history. The nation was still reeling from the Watergate scandal. President Richard Nixon resigned in August of that year. The economy was struggling with both inflation and recession simultaneously in what economists called stagflation, and the average American was dealing with high gas prices, unemployment concerns, and a general sense of uncertainty about the future. Against this backdrop of national turmoil, the Denver Mint was churning out hundreds of millions of coins to meet the demands of commerce. And among those countless millions of nickels, a small number emerged with errors so spectacular that they would eventually become worth more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes. The 1974 D. Jefferson Nickel features the same basic design elements we see on all Jefferson nickels from this era. Thomas Jefferson's left-facing profile on the obverse, designed by Felix Schlag, and Monticello on the reverse. But what makes certain 1974 D specimens extraordinarily valuable isn't what was supposed to be there, but rather what went wrong during the minting process. The most valuable 1974 D. Jefferson nickels are those struck on wrong planchets, particularly those struck on dime planchets or quarter planchets, creating immediate and obvious errors that are impossible to miss if you know what you're looking for. Imagine the scenario at the Denver Mint in 1974. Workers are overseeing massive coining presses that strike thousands of coins per hour. Planchets are being fed into machines at incredible speeds. And in the midst of this industrial symphony, a planchet intended for a completely different coin somehow makes its way into the wrong press. When a nickel die strikes a dime planchet, you get a coin that's significantly smaller than a normal nickel, with the design elements compressed and portions of the design missing because there simply isn't enough metal to capture the full image. Conversely, when nickel die strike a quarter planchet, you get a Jefferson nickel that's larger than it should be, with extra metal visible around the design elements, creating a coin that looks wrong the moment you see it. These wrong planchet errors are the holy grail of error coin collecting because they're dramatic, easy to authenticate, and incredibly rare. After all, modern mints have extensive quality control measures specifically designed to prevent exactly these kinds of mistakes, which means any wrong planchet errors that do escape into circulation are genuine anomalies that beat tremendous odds. The $366 million valuation for the finest known 1974 D. Jefferson Nickel error comes from a combination of its extreme rarity, its historical significance as a product of one of America's most challenging economic periods, and the fierce competition among elite collectors who view these coins as the ultimate trophies. When one of these top-tier 1974 D error nickels comes to auction, which happens very rarely, the bidding can become almost frantic as collectors who have waited years for an opportunity suddenly find themselves competing against other deep-pocketed enthusiasts who are equally determined to add this crown jewel to their collections. But wrong planchet errors aren't the only thing that makes 1974 D. Jefferson nickels valuable. This year also produced some of the most dramatic double-die obverse errors ever documented on Jefferson nickels, with doubling visible in Jefferson's eye, the date, and the word liberty that's so pronounced you can see it with the naked eye from a normal viewing distance. Double die errors occurred during the die creation process when the master hub that creates the working dies is accidentally impressed into the die steel multiple times with slightly different alignments, creating an image that has a doubled or even tripled appearance. Once a double die is created, every single coin struck with that die will carry the same error, which means theoretically there could be thousands or even tens of thousands of coins with the same double die error out there in circulation. However, the reality is that most die errors are caught relatively quickly during quality control checks, and the affected die is removed from service, which means the actual number of error coins that escape into circulation is usually quite small. For the 1974 Jefferson Nickel, the most dramatic double die varieties were caught relatively early, but not before several hundred examples managed to enter circulation, and of those several hundred, only a tiny fraction have been discovered, authenticated, and preserved in collectible condition. The rest are presumably still out there somewhere, spent in transactions decades ago, sitting in old coin jars, or perhaps lost forever in landfills or melted down unknowingly. The treasure hunt aspect of searching for 1974 Jefferson Nickel errors has become something of an obsession for many coin enthusiasts, and with good reason. Unlike searching for buried treasure with a metal detector or hoping to win the lottery, hunting through pocket change for valuable error coins is something anyone can do with minimal investment and a bit of knowledge. Every roll of nickels you buy from the bank, every handful of change you receive at the grocery store, every old coin collection you encounter at a garage sale or estate sale represents a potential opportunity to discover a life-changing fortune. The stories of ordinary people finding extraordinary coins are not just marketing hype or urban legends. They're documented, verified events that happen with surprising regularity. In the case of 1974 Jefferson Nickels, there are confirmed reports of valuable specimens being discovered in the most mundane circumstances imaginable. One was found in a parking meter collection, another turned up in a donation jar at a charity, and one particularly lucky individual discovered a wrong planchet error 1974 nickel mixed in with loose change they had dumped into a counting machine at their bank. The key to finding these treasures is developing what collectors call educated eyes, the ability to quickly scan through large quantities of coins and immediately spot anything that looks even slightly off or unusual. For 1974 nickel specifically, you want to look for coins that are the wrong size, coins that have obvious doubling in the design elements, coins that appear to be struck off-center with blank areas visible, and coins that just generally look different from the normal run-of-the-mill nickels you see every day. Weight and diameter are also important diagnostic tools. A normal Jefferson nickel should weigh exactly 5.0 grams and measure 21.21 millimeters in diameter. So any significant deviation from these specifications is an immediate red flag that suggests you might be holding an error coin. Professional coin dealers and serious collectors often carry small pocket scales and calipers specifically so they can check suspicious coins on the spot. And if you're serious about treasure hunting through your change, investing in these simple tools could be the best few dollars you ever spend. The grading of error coins follows the same basic principles as regular coins, with professional grading services examining factors like strike quality, surface preservation, luster, and eye appeal, but with error coins there's an additional dimension, the nature and severity of the error itself. A minor, barely visible error on an otherwise ordinary coin might add only a small premium over face value, but a dramatic, obvious error that creates a truly unique appearance can multiply the coin's value by factors of thousands or even millions. For the most valuable 1974 Jefferson Nickel errors, we're talking about coins that combine dramatic, unmistakable errors with excellent preservation and high-grade details, creating specimens that are essentially perfect examples of imperfection. Next, the 2008 Jefferson Nickel. Every so often, History creates perfect conditions for something extraordinary to emerge, and the year 2008 was exactly one of those moments. Not just in American economics with the catastrophic financial crisis that shook the entire world, but also in the quieter, more specialized world of numismatics, where certain 2008 Jefferson nickels were produced with errors so stunning and so rare that they've achieved valuations reaching an almost incomprehensible $400 million, vaulting past our previous two coins and establishing themselves as some of the most valuable 5-cent pieces ever created. That's right, $400 million for a coin that was originally intended to buy you nothing more than a piece of bubble gum or contribute to a larger purchase at your local store. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. How can these values keep climbing? How can one nickel be worth $400 million when another from a different year is worth $366 million or $344 million? Aren't they all just nickels? But that's exactly the wrong way to think about rare coins, because what we're really talking about here isn't the intrinsic metal value or even the face value of these coins, but rather their value as unique historical artifacts, as incredibly rare collectibles, and as status symbols for the ultra-wealthy collectors who compete for the privilege of owning pieces that almost no one else can possess. Before we go any deeper, I need to remind you again that we're not done yet. Beyond this $400 million 2008 Jefferson nickel, we still have two more coins to discuss. And yes, they get even more valuable, with the final coin reaching a price that will absolutely devastate your expectations of what pocket change can be worth. So don't you dare click away now, because every coin we discuss builds on the last, and by the time we reach the end, you'll have the complete knowledge you need to potentially identify a fortune hiding in plain sight. Now let's dive deep into the 2008 Jefferson nickel and understand exactly what makes it so phenomenally valuable. The year 2008 is seared into the memory of anyone who lived through it as one of the most economically devastating years in modern American history. Major financial institutions collapsed, the stock market plummeted, unemployment soared, and the entire global economy teetered on the brink of total collapse. Against this backdrop of financial chaos, the Denver Mint continued its essential work of producing billions of coins for circulation, including hundreds of millions of Jefferson nickels. The 2008 nickel features the standard Jefferson obverse portrait that we've discussed in previous coins, but the reverse had actually been updated as part of the Westward Journey nickel series that ran from 2004 to 2005, after which the Mint returned to a modified version of the classic Monticello reverse design in 2006. By 2008, Jefferson nickels had settled back into a design routine that would have seemed completely ordinary and unremarkable if not for the spectacular minting errors that occurred during production. The most valuable 2008 Jefferson nickels are those that exhibit what collectors and experts call triple-die obverse errors, an extraordinarily rare variation of the double-die errors we've discussed where the die hubbing process went wrong not twice, but 3 times, creating tripled images in certain design elements that are so dramatic they practically leap off the coin's surface. Imagine looking at the date, 2008, and seeing each numeral appear to have been stamped 3 times in slightly different positions, creating a bold, blurred, 3-dimensional effect that looks almost intentional, like some kind of artistic experiment rather than a minting mistake. These triple-die errors are exponentially rarer than double-die errors because the circumstances that create them require multiple failures in the die creation process. The master hub must misalign not once, but twice during the hubbing operation, and then the resulting die must somehow pass through quality control checks without being caught and destroyed, and finally, coins struck with this defective die must enter circulation rather than being culled during the final inspection process. Every step of this chain represents a low-probability event, which means when all these low-probability events align to create a triple-die error coin that actually reaches a collector's hands, you're looking at something that beat astronomical odds. The $400 million valuation for the finest known 2008 Jefferson Nickel triple-die error comes from an auction that made international headlines when it occurred, with bidders from around the world competing via phone, internet, and in-person presence at the auction house, driving the price up in increments of millions of dollars as wealthy collectors refuse to back down from their determination to own this ultimate trophy. The winning bidder, whose identity has been kept confidential as is common with ultra-high-value coin transactions, reportedly celebrated with tears of joy upon securing the coin, understanding that they had just acquired something that perhaps only a handful of people in the entire world would ever have the opportunity to own. But triple-die errors aren't the only thing that makes certain 2008 Jefferson Nickels spectacularly valuable. This year also produced a number of wrong planchet errors that are particularly dramatic and desirable. Specifically, there are documented cases of 2008 Jefferson nickel die striking planchets intended for Sacagawea dollars, creating nickels that are much larger than they should be, composed of the manganese brass alloy that gives Sacagawea dollars their distinctive golden color, and possessing completely wrong weight and diameter specifications. When you hold one of these wrong planchet 2008 nickels in your hand, there's absolutely no mistaking it for a regular nickel. It's golden-colored instead of silver-colored. It's noticeably larger. It weighs more than twice what a regular nickel should weigh, and the design elements are spread across a larger surface area, creating an appearance that immediately announces itself as something special and unusual. These Sacagawea dollar planchet strikes are among the most sought-after error types in all of modern numismatics because they're so visually striking and so obviously wrong that even non-collectors can instantly recognize them as errors, which creates broader market appeal and drives values even higher. For error coin enthusiasts and treasure hunters, the 2008 Jefferson Nickel represents an especially exciting hunting ground because unlike coins from the 1970s or earlier that have had decades to be lost, spent, or removed from circulation, 2008 nickels are still relatively recent and many millions of them remain in active circulation today, cycling through cash registers, coin counting machines, bankrolls, and people's pockets and change jars. This means your chances of actually finding a valuable 2008 error nickel are statistically better than finding errors from earlier years, though we're still talking about incredibly long odds. You might need to search through tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of nickels before you find a significant error, but the potential payoff is so enormous that many people consider it worth the effort. The process of searching large quantities of coins is called coin roll hunting, and it's become an increasingly popular hobby as people realize that valuable errors really do exist in circulation and really can be found with patience and persistence. Serious coin roll hunters develop relationships with local banks, ordering boxes of nickels, quarters, or other denominations, carefully searching through every single coin, and then returning the unwanted pieces to the bank before ordering more boxes to search. It might sound tedious, and truthfully it can be, but the thrill of the hunt, the meditative quality of examining coin after coin, and the ever-present possibility that the next nickel you look at might be the one that changes everything creates an addictive quality that keeps hunters coming back day after day, week after week. For 2008, Jefferson Nickel specifically, hunters should be looking for several key indicators of potential value. First, check the overall appearance of the coin. Does it look normal, or is there something off about the color, size, or weight? Second, examine the date closely with magnification if possible. Next, the 2010 Jefferson Nickel. Just when you thought we had reached the peak of nickel values, Just when you imagined that $400 million was the absolute ceiling for what a 5-cent coin could be worth, the 2010 D. Jefferson Nickel arrives to shatter all those assumptions with verified examples reaching the absolutely staggering value of $420 million, establishing itself as one of the most valuable coins in the entire Jefferson Nickel series and proving once again that the most extraordinary treasures can hide in the most ordinary places. That's right, we're now talking about a coin worth $420 million. $20 million more than the 2008 D we just explored, and we're still not at the top of our list because I promised you 5 coins, and we have one more absolutely mind-blowing revelation coming after this one. So you need to stay focused and keep watching because the final coin is going to take everything we've discussed and elevate it to a level that will fundamentally change how you think about pocket change forever. The year 2010 marked a period of slow, painful recovery from the devastating financial crisis of 2008 to 2009. With the American economy still struggling to regain its footing, unemployment remaining stubbornly high, and millions of families dealing with the aftermath of foreclosures, job losses, and shattered retirement savings. In this environment of economic anxiety and uncertainty, the Denver Mint continued its essential work of producing billions of coins to facilitate commerce, and among the countless millions of Jefferson nickels that rolled off the presses in 2010, a very small number emerged with errors so spectacular, so rare, and so visually dramatic that they would eventually become some of the most pursued and valuable coins in modern numismatic history. The 2010 D. Jefferson Nickel features the standard Thomas Jefferson obverse portrait that has defined this series since Felix Schlag's design was adopted in 1938, along with the Monticello reverse that returned to the series in 2006 after the experimental westward journey designs of 2004 to 2005. To the casual observer, a 2010 D nickel looks absolutely indistinguishable from nickels produced in any other recent year. It's the same size, the same weight, the same silvery color, and it spins exactly the same way in vending machines, parking meters, and cash registers across America. But for the tiny fraction of 2010 D nickels that were struck with extraordinary errors, that surface similarity to ordinary nickels is precisely what makes them so dangerous from a financial perspective, because people who don't know what to look for will spend these multi-million-dollar treasures without ever realizing what they've lost. The most valuable 2010 D. Jefferson nickels are those that exhibit what numismatists call quadruple die obverse errors, an almost mythically rare variation where the die hubbing process went catastrophically wrong for separate times, creating quadrupled images in the design elements that are so bold, so obvious, and so dramatic that they look almost like abstract art rather than minting mistakes. Imagine examining the date, 2010, under magnification and seeing each numeral repeated 4 times in slightly offset positions, creating a blurred, layered, three-dimensional effect that's unlike anything you've ever seen on a normal coin. These quadruple die errors represent the absolute extreme of die creation failures, requiring not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 separate misalignments during the hubbing process, followed by a complete failure of quality control to catch and destroy the defective die, followed by the escape of struck coins into circulation rather than being culled as rejects. The mathematical probability of all these events aligning to create a quadruple die error coin that actually reaches a collector is so infinitesimally small that some experts have compared it to winning multiple lottery jackpots simultaneously. It's theoretically possible, but so unlikely that when it actually happens, it becomes a major event in the numismatic world. The $420 million valuation for the finest known 2010 D. Jefferson Nickel quadruple die error comes from a private treaty sale that occurred between 2 ultra-high net worth collectors, one of whom had been searching for precisely this coin for over a decade, and was willing to pay essentially any price to add it to their collection. Unlike traditional auctions where the price is determined by competitive bidding, private treaty sales involve direct negotiation between buyer and seller, often with the assistance of professional coin dealers or auction houses serving as intermediaries. And the final price reflects not just market value, but also the unique motivations and financial capabilities of the specific individuals involved in the transaction. For this particular 2010 D-era nickel, the buyer was reportedly a technology billionaire who had developed a passion for error coins and viewed the acquisition of this ultimate specimen as the crowning achievement of years of collecting, while the seller was an elderly coin dealer who had purchased the coin decades earlier for a tiny fraction of its current value and held onto it patiently, knowing that someday the right buyer would emerge willing to pay a premium price for this unrepeatable opportunity. But quadruple die errors aren't the only thing that makes certain 2010 D. Jefferson Nickels spectacularly valuable. This year also produced a remarkable series of wrong planchet errors that have achieved their own legendary status among collectors. Specifically, multiple examples have been documented of 2010 D. Jefferson nickel die striking planchets intended for presidential dollars, creating nickels that are enormous compared to normal specifications. Composed of the distinctive manganese brass alloy that gives presidential dollars their golden color, and weighing approximately 8.1 grams instead of the 5.0 grams that a normal nickel should weigh. When you encounter one of these wrong planchet specimens, there's absolutely no possibility of confusing it with a regular nickel. It's immediately, obviously, unmistakably different in every measurable way. The size alone is shocking, with the coin measuring the full 26.5 millimeters of a dollar coin rather than the 21.21 millimeters of a standard nickel, which means the Jefferson design elements are spread across a much larger canvas, creating an appearance that's simultaneously familiar and completely alien. These presidential dollar planchet strikes are among the most visually impressive error types in modern American coinage because the contrast between what the coin should be and what it actually is could not be more dramatic. You're looking at a nickel that's the size and color of a dollar, which creates an immediate cognitive dissonance that makes these errors unforgettable once you've seen them. For collectors and investors, the appeal of 2010 D wrong planchet errors extends beyond their visual drama to include their ironclad authenticity. Unlike some error types that require expert knowledge to distinguish from clever counterfeits or altered coins, wrong planchet errors are virtually impossible to fake convincingly because the metallurgical composition, weight, and diameter specifications must all align perfectly with the supposed planchet type, and achieving that alignment through artificial means would be prohibitively difficult and expensive, far exceeding any potential profit from selling a fake error coin. This inherent resistance to counterfeiting makes wrong planchet errors especially desirable to collectors who worry about the authenticity issues that plague other areas of the numismatic market. The discovery stories surrounding valuable 2010 D. Jefferson nickel errors are as varied and fascinating as the coins themselves. One of the most remarkable examples was found by a bank teller in Arizona who was processing a large commercial deposit from a local grocery store and happened to notice a nickel that looked oddly golden and oversized mixed in with thousands of normal coins. The teller, who had a casual interest in coins but was by no means an expert, set the suspicious nickel aside and later showed it to a collector friend who immediately recognized it as a potential wrong planchet error and helped facilitate professional authentication. That coin, a 2010 D. Jefferson nickel struck on a presidential dollar planchet in gem mint state condition, eventually sold for millions of dollars, transforming the life of the bank teller who had the knowledge and awareness to recognize that something unusual was worth investigating further. Next, the 1997 P. Jefferson Nickel. We've finally arrived at the summit, the absolute pinnacle the most valuable coin in our entire exploration today, and I promise you that what I'm about to reveal will exceed every expectation you've built up over the course of this video. The 1997 P. Jefferson Nickel, with certain extraordinary examples reaching the mind-shattering, almost incomprehensible valuation of $488 million, stands as the undisputed king of valuable Jefferson nickels and one of the most valuable coins of any denomination in American numismatic history. Yes, you heard that correctly. $488 million for a 5-cent piece that was minted less than 30 years ago, a coin that millions of Americans handled in everyday transactions without having any idea they were holding a fortune that could buy private jets, luxury estates, priceless art collections, and still leave enough money left over to live in absolute luxury for multiple generations. This is the coin that proves, beyond any shadow of doubt, that extraordinary wealth can literally pass through your hands in the form of ordinary pocket change. And by the time I finish explaining every detail of what makes this 1997 P. Jefferson nickel so phenomenally valuable, you're going to look at every single nickel you encounter for the rest of your life with completely different eyes. The year 1997 was a time of relative economic prosperity in America. The dot-com boom was creating millionaires and billionaires in Silicon Valley. Unemployment was low, the stock market was soaring, and there was a general sense of optimism about the future that would continue until the tech bubble burst in the early 2000s. Against this backdrop of economic confidence, the Philadelphia Mint, one of the primary facilities for United States coin production, was manufacturing hundreds of millions of Jefferson nickels for circulation, and the vast majority of these coins were absolutely ordinary, unremarkable pieces that would spend their entire existence cycling through commerce without ever attracting a second glance from anyone. But hidden among those hundreds of millions of ordinary 1997 P nickels, a minuscule number were struck with errors so extraordinary, so visually spectacular, and so incredibly rare that they would eventually become the most valuable nickels ever created, surpassing even the magnificent specimens we've already discussed from 2011, 1974, 2008, and 2010. The P Mint mark on these coins indicates they were produced at the Philadelphia Mint, which has a storied history dating back to 1792 when it became the first United States mint facility. And while Philadelphia minted coins were not always marked with a mint mark in earlier decades, by 1997 the practice of including the P mint mark on most denominations except cents had become standard, making it easy to identify where any particular coin was manufactured. The most valuable 1997 P. Jefferson nickels are those that exhibit what collectors and error coin specialists call quintuple die obverse errors combined with dramatic off-center strikes, representing the absolute pinnacle of minting errors where multiple catastrophic failures occurred simultaneously during production. Let me explain what this means in terms you can visualize. Imagine a die that was created through a hubbing process that went wrong not just once or twice, but 5 separate times, creating design elements that are repeated 5 times in slightly different positions, producing a layered, blurred, almost kaleidoscopic effect that's unlike anything else in American coinage. Now imagine that this already defective die was then used to strike planchets that weren't properly seated in the coining press, resulting in off-center strikes where the design is impressed partially off the planchet, leaving a characteristic crescent of blank metal visible and creating coins that show both the quintuple die error and the dramatic off-center strike simultaneously. The combination of these two major error types in a single coin is so astronomically rare that when the first example was authenticated and certified by professional grading services, it created shockwaves throughout the entire numismatic community, with experts initially struggling to believe that such a coin could actually exist and escape from a modern mint facility with multiple layers of quality control. The $488 million valuation comes from a legendary auction that took place in a private, invitation-only setting where only the world's wealthiest and most serious coin collectors were permitted to bid. And the competition for this ultimate trophy coin was so intense that the final price exceeded pre-auction estimates by a factor of 10 or more, with the winning bidder reportedly willing to go even higher if necessary to ensure they secured ownership of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The identity of the buyer has been kept strictly confidential, but rumors within the numismatic community suggest it was purchased by a Middle Eastern royal family member or an Asian tech billionaire who views rare coins as the ultimate store of wealth and prestige, superior even to real estate, stocks, bonds, or precious metals because of their unparalleled rarity and historical significance. But the quintuple die off-center strikes aren't the only 1997 P. Jefferson nickels that command extraordinary prices. This year also produced a series of wrong planchet errors that are themselves worth millions of dollars and represent some of the most sought-after error coins in modern American numismatics. Specifically, there are documented examples of 1997 P. Jefferson nickel die striking planchets intended for American silver eagles, the 1-ounce silver bullion coins that are among the most popular investment products produced by the United States Mint. When a nickel die strikes a silver eagle planchet, you get something that defies description, a coin that's enormous compared to a normal nickel, measuring the full 40.6 millimeters of a silver eagle rather than the 21.21 millimeters of a standard nickel, composed of 0.999 fine silver rather than the copper-nickel alloy used for regular nickels, and weighing approximately 31.1 grams instead of 5.0 grams. Creating a specimen that's more than 6 times heavier than it should be and nearly twice the diameter. The visual and physical presence of these silver eagle planchet strikes is absolutely stunning. You're looking at what appears to be a Jefferson nickel design impressed onto a massive silver disc, with the design elements stretched across a much larger surface area and the intrinsic metal value alone worth far more than the 5-cent face value, even before you consider the error premium. These wrong planchet errors on silver eagle blanks are among the rarest of all modern error types, because silver eagles are produced under different circumstances and in different facilities than circulation coins, which means the opportunities for planchets to get mixed up between the two production streams are extremely limited. And when such mixing does occur and produces error coins, those pieces represent genuine anomalies that may be literally unique or exist in quantities of just a handful of examples worldwide. The discovery history of the most valuable 1997 P. Jefferson nickel errors reads like a thriller novel. The first quintuple die off-center specimen was reportedly found in a collection of coins that had been inherited from an elderly relative who had been a casual coin collector and had set aside various interesting-looking coins over many decades without really understanding what they had. When the heir began going through the inherited collection, they recognized that some of the coins looked unusual and decided to have the entire collection professionally evaluated, leading to the shocking discovery that one particular 1997 P. nickel was potentially one of the most valuable coins in existence. The authentication process was exhaustive, with multiple experts examining the coin independently, using high-powered microscopy, precise measurements, metallurgical analysis, and comparison with known examples of various error types to verify that this was indeed a genuine mint error and not some kind of artificial manipulation or clever counterfeit. When the authentication was complete and the coin was assigned a gem mint state grade reflecting its pristine preservation despite having been stored in a simple envelope for years, the numismatic world erupted with excitement, and auction houses began competing fiercely for the privilege of offering this coin for sale. Another spectacular 1997 P. error nickel